Welcome again to our session on the question of authorship. We have explored in our earlier session that the exploration of identity, date, or any such personal history of Bharata as an individual, whether he was a man or woman, his personal life, this did not made any significance because in regard to the theory of aesthetics, what is of primary importance is that a text which has been attributed to Bharata, our focus has been on the text which is a seminal text, and rather which is considered to be the first enunciation of an Indian theory of aesthetics, and we are least interested in the personal history of any author as such. So we know that the question of authorship is not important for us, and many arguments or assumptions which have been put forth by Kapila Vatsyayan prove that we pause for not for certain hypotheses, and we don't give any primary significance to the identity of Bharata, where and when did he live, because many answers have been suggested. And the close reading of the text, she says, it also shows that the work reflects a unity, because sometimes certain things which have been mentioned in chapter 2nd, and it has been mentioned there that they will be dealt in chapter 17th later on, so they are taken up. So unity is a very important characteristics of the structure of a text, which reveals that this is the work of a single author, and it is the product of a single integrated vision. Now, she also says that there are no complexities or contradictions in the text. This also is an argument put forth uh, as a, as a matter of fact that Bharat was the author of the text. And there are many subjects. And we have also dealt in our earlier session. We know that when we look back at the history or biography of Bharat as such, we know that he was a learned man. He knew the arts, music, architecture, everything. So we have so many aspects and so many chapters that deal with different varied subjects in the text. So this also proves that it is the work of a single author. Now, again, there are some technical terms related to music and structure which are mentioned in some of the chapters, but they are not elaborated thereon. Their elaboration meaning is continued in the later chapters. It can only happen when certain one person has written the both the chapters and so on. One more argument that Bharat was a historical person, and whether he stood for the ancient name of India that has arisen, but certain arguments given by Vatsyayan again proves that it did not denote any collective work of so many people, because it depicts and reflects a common structure and a common framework. Now we know that it is a theoretical work. So she says that it is not important that he inquire the definition, and we know that he was a learned person. And one more statement from the Natyashastra last chapter by Bharat himself, that is quoted in the second point. As he alone conducts as the leader of a performance by acting in many roles and playing many instruments by providing many accessories, he is called Bharata. So we see that from this statement, Bharat wants to project that subjectivity, personal identity, or I of the creator or the author is not important, because in our lives also we have to merge our identities to be called and named as Bharat. And therefore, he says that as a leader of performance or performing many roles, as we perform different roles in our lives, we become one, that is Bharat, and we provide many accessories and relationships, all that to our lives. Now, his role and contribution in communicating the real state of mind is very obvious, and this also is revealed from certain arguments, because when we look back at the acronym Bharat in detail, we see that Bharat is an acronym for three syllables. Bha means bhav, that is mood. Ra means rag, that is melodic framework. And ta means tal, that is rhythm. So when we look back at this point, we know that it was Natya Shastra is not just a work of a single author, maybe not even a group of authors or a school of thought, because the word Bharat, if it is an acronym for the three syllables, it comprises one. And all those arguments and counter arguments that have been put forth, they defend each of these positions. And we also have historical works by authors like MacDonnell, Keith, and Ramakrishnan, Manmohan Ghosh, etc. And when they have a close reading of the text, they have also focused on the unity of the chapters, which gave rise to the answers to the question that Bharat was a person who did belong to a community of artists, dancers, poets, and who shared a worldview. And when we mention here that he shared a worldview, we know that he shared a mythology, and he was very conversant with the textual traditions of the Vedas, and he was very well acquainted with the actual performance and practice. Otherwise, we would not be able to understand the mythology with repeated references to Vedic texts, the repeated references to rituals, to yagnas, and also to certain pujas. So, from the text, when we read the text, we do learn something that he belonged to an artistic family, and it also reveals the concept of say invocation of gods, Parampita, Brahma, then Shiva, and all those rare combinants. And he mentions that I've learned Natya Ved from them, I learned this from those gods, etc. Then we know that nothing is known about Bharat. So all those arguments regarding the date of the Natya Shastra are solely based upon the text which is available to us. And we know that in the text, it predates certain sections of the Ramayana. And the musical terminology is used by Valmiki also in the Ramayana. It follows Bharata's outlines. And these kind of evidences or arguments, they reveal that it is something, the text belongs to an era or an age which is later than some of the Puranas and some of the Brahmana texts. And all these opinions, they help us in concluding that the composition or the date of composition of Natya Shastra lies somewhere between 200 BC and 200 CE. So, this appears that this is a broad consensus about reaching at an argument that the work is the relationship between the attitude of the author, the different orders of knowledge, or the idea of transpersonal self. All such statements, they speak of an attitude, they speak of an attitude of a mind. So we Kapila says that we have made an effort to put this text in a larger background, and the basic tenets of worldview, cosmology, or say knowledge or knowledge systems have been perfectly utilized by Bharata in creating a kind of a document or a text which deals with theatrical universe. So when we read the text, we explicate this from the text itself that this has been something meant for the stage, and the commentaries also talk about the pre-context, and the context also talk about the claiming of Bharat Muni as the author of the Natya Shastra.